Here you go. This is appropriate for today. I want to start with our affirmation that we seek wisdom, understanding, insights into the views and circumstances of others. Strength to seek what we believe in, humility to accept the combined decisions of others, patience, good humour at all times, tolerance and courtesy, while working in the best interests of this most beautiful city. Councillors, good morning. Morning, members of the public, the staff, the media. Welcome to you all. And I got a very good welcome this morning coming in the front door. If you just give me a sec so I can lose some stuff here and organise things. So this is the latest. Right. That out of the way and that out of the way. Leave that there.
Excuse me, Len.
Yeah.
Is there a...
That's not the point of order, Mr. Chairman. The correct address
Mr. Mayor.
to yourself is either Your Worship or Mr. Mayor.
Your Worship?
Not Len across the room.
Your Worship. Very good that you've got Councillor Cracks batting for you then.
The Worship?
Your Worship.
Yes, Councillor Wayne.
I just make the observation that there are a number of members of the public outside.
Yes, and that's where they're staying.
And not so many
And that's where they're
in
staying.
here. Is there a reason why there aren't more?
Because the media are there, out there and they're all on.
I'm just
Reverend Pooh is out there waxing lyrical, and so you don't want to stop him in mid-stride. So I suggest we just leave him there until he finishes,
Let's get on
and
with
then at some point they will just arrive in here, I guess, and that's all good. Okay, now, councillors, we've got apologies. Two apologies for lateness. I'll move that. Second to Councillor Wayne. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
It's passed. Declarations of interest, none. Confirmation of minutes. I'll move the confirmation of the ordinary minutes of the meeting held on Thursday, 24 September 2015 as a true and correct record. All those in favour, the seconder, Councillor Penny W. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
It's passed. Acknowledgements and achievements. Councillors, you have the achievements there. Have been a big month. But you will see that I have 4 acknowledgements, and so what I will do is acknowledge each and then ask us to stand for some moments of silence in recognition of them all together. First of all, I want to acknowledge the passing of Dave Walden. New Zealand advertising industry lost a larger-than-life giant of the business with the passing of David. Dave co-founded Wyburn TBWA Group New Zealand in 1997 and left in December 2013 after 16 years of creative and business success. In January 2014, he started his own shop, Boat Shed 73 Co. Dave had arguably the best booming voice in the business and was often asked to be MC at events including the Access Awards and Campaign Brief NZ Legendary Lunches. Sound like something that we would all like to have been a part of. Wyburn TBWA picked up numerous awards under Dave's watch, including 2 Cairns Grand Prix, 15 Lions, 6 One Show Pencils and Grand Clio. Dave was honoured with the Access Lifetime Achievement Award at the New Zealand Access Awards in 2013. Dave's legendary ASB Goldstein advertisements ran for 10 years, which in ad land was a lifetime. Dave is survived by his wife, Annie, and 2 children, Joanna and Michael. Secondly, I'd like to acknowledge the passing of Josh Martin, a Pakuranga College student. He died following a road accident aged just 17. He was one of our Young Enterprises, or YES scheme, shining stars. Josh was the CEO of a team called Salvus, the Latin word for safe, and the team started a business to create car restraints for dogs. There were 6 young Pakuranga College students in the team which competed in the YES Young Enterprise scheme this year. Their innovative product aims to keep dogs and their owners safe while travelling on the road. Salvus teamed up with SPCA Auckland, and a percentage of their sales will be donated to support the good work of the Auckland SPCA. Josh was also selected as one of the 20 young entrepreneurs to take part in Venture Up, a 6-week summer program exclusively for YES alumni. a promising young life taken away far too soon. And now a life very, very well lived. Bill Mudgeway, the eye in the sky. Bill passed away a couple of days ago, aged 93. He was a broadcasting pioneer doing morning and afternoon traffic reports from a light airplane for former Auckland private broadcasting station Radio Eye in Auckland between 1981 and 1994. He was also the voice of Western Springs Speedway for 45 years until retiring in 1993 and was later inducted into the New Zealand Speedway Hall of Fame. He was the announcer at the New Zealand Grand Prix at Ardmore for 2 decades and for wrestling and boxing bouts at the Auckland Town Hall and YMCA. He also announced the start of the Round the Bays race for many years. In recent years, Bill broadcast on Howick Village Radio 88.1 FM and was a mentor to other hosts. He also served as a Pakuranga Community Board member and on the county's Manukau Health Board. He did a considerable community charity and fundraising work, including for Starship Children's Hospital and the Phobic Trust. Bill was awarded the Queen's Service Medal for services to the public in 1993. He attended Otahu College and served in the New Zealand Defence Force during World War II. He's survived by his wife Catherine and was father to Lorraine, Sylvia and the late Bill. Finally, I want to recognise Reverend Peter Davis. A broadcaster turned Anglican priest, Reverend Peter Davis died earlier this week, aged 71. He worked in radio in Christchurch, Wellington and Auckland and also did some television work. He was the host of Radio New Zealand Children's Holiday Program for several years, and after becoming a priest he went on to be the church's communications officer and therefore once again involved with the media. Originally from Dublin, Peter was a lecturer, writer, orator and raconteur and will be deeply missed. He is survived by his wife Jennifer, children and grandchildren. Councillors, members of the public and all, can you please stand in recognition of those 4 fine people.
Stay there.
Thank you very much all. Right, petitions. I have no petitions as at this time. Right, now we're going to move to public input. And I have one item of public input. I beg your pardon? Right, 2 items of public interest. The first, we're going to hear from Steve Abel from Greenpeace on a matter in this agenda, the Block Offer 216 submission. Steve, welcome.
Thank you.
Good to see you, and to all of your team in support. Welcome.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman. Just before Mr. Abel begins his presentation, to avoid any embarrassment to Mr. Abel, could you please just remind him of Council standing orders about the allotment of time?
Councillor Quack, I do respect your knowledge of the standing orders, but please don't forget that I have forgotten the knowledge also. Steve will be well advised that he has 5 minutes to speak to us.
Thank you.
And so, Steve, I'll start sort of giving you a few eyebrows and heads up.
Okay.
Once you go past the 5.
Thank you. I
Right.
appreciate that. Yes.
So away you go.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, councillors, for hearing from us today. As you said, I'm Steve Abel from Greenpeace New Zealand. I'm speaking on the 2016 block offer. I originally was going to give a presentation, but I'm going to spare Elaine Stevenson and all of you that and simply speak. My aim is to give some reasons why I hope this council will vote against the block offer as currently proposed. The first thing, there is a misperception that oil exploration does not involve drilling. In fact, the deep sea oil exploration permits in this country are issued for 12 to 15 years, and they not only involve deep sea drilling, but they involve the riskiest kind of drilling, exploratory deep sea drilling. Deep sea exploratory drilling was the cause of the worst offshore oceanic oil disaster in history, the Gulf of Mexico disaster. I can spare you images of that. And further, there is no chance for public input because exploratory drilling is non-notified. So this local body consultation is the only point at which the public can have any say on the riskiest drilling that there is in the industry. The block offer means seismic blasting over vast tracts of ocean. A healthy ocean is not a silent ocean, but one filled with noises. And Dr. Matt Pine observed, the bioacoustician, a large number of marine species that exist in the Tasman Sea when he observed the seismic blasting up there. Specialist ships go 24/7 over the summer months, blasting over those vast tracts of ocean. And it can disturb feeding, mating, nurturing of marine mammals, and has many impacts on these marine mammals, including, of course, the Maui's dolphin. It's another reason for we should say no to this block offer. Thirdly, the scientific reality of climate change. It is happening now. 2015 is set to be the hottest year on record, taking the title from 2014. We've just had a record-breaking storm in Mexico. We saw Cyclone Haiyan in the Philippines, which killed over 6,000 people. And NASA climate scientist James Hansen suggests that a 10-foot sea level rise within 50 years is feasible. I did speculate, stuck in traffic for an hour driving from New Lynn, that indeed the Waterview Tunnel may be underwater within the century. Thus aptly named. You'd need a submarine to go through. But seriously, the impact on our Pacific cousins, brothers and sisters from climate change is very real. It is happening now. Sea level rise and the extreme weather events that we're frequently seeing. And I want to thank the Pacifica Hip Hop Poets for their powerful performances this morning. James Hansen again says the continuation of high fossil fuel emissions, given current knowledge of the consequences, would be an extraordinary act of intergenerational injustice. We're somewhat surprised that the current submission doesn't mention climate change. I invite you to make it one of your considerations, though, in your vote today. We can only afford to burn 1/5 of the known reserves of fossil fuels, let alone dig up any more. Any oil that may exist off our coast is exactly the stuff that needs to stay on the ground. Spencer Dale, who's the chief economist of BP, said just this month, what has changed in recent years is the growing recognition that concerns about carbon emissions and climate change mean that it is increasingly unlikely that the world's reserves of oil will ever be exhausted. The Stone Age didn't end because we ran out of stones. Our problem is not a lack of oil, our problem is a lack of political courage to say no to new oil. And let's be clear, there is no deep sea oil in the current production economy in New Zealand because not a single viable drop has yet been found. So we're not saying no to an existing industry, we're saying no to an industry that doesn't exist and we believe should not exist, particularly in the beautiful waters off Tamaki Makaurau. An industry that urgently needs to be in its sunset phase. There's a vast and burgeoning global clean energy industry, and New Zealand deserves to be part of that, not part of pursuing the last drops of oil. Like the tobacco industry, despite the undeniable science that it is bad for us, the oil industry will keep drilling and selling the stuff so long as society doesn't say no. We hear people say that we need oil. We need oil like a heroin addict needs heroin, which is to say that we don't need oil, we are dependent on oil. And like an addict knows deep down, what we really need is to break that dependency on that substance, not keep getting more of it. Again, our problem is not a lack of oil, a lack of political courage to say no to oil is our problem. And that is what we're calling you to do today at the Auckland Council. We're calling you to be on the right side of history and oppose all offshore exploration and drilling in the 2016 block offer. The question we have, and I'm rounding up now, Mr. Mayor, is what can we do today so that tomorrow we can do what we could not do today? And what we can do today is say no to oil so that our children can live without it, so that they can live without the risk of oil spills on these valuable coasts and oceans and the harbours of Tamaki Makaurau that we Aucklanders hold in our hearts, as you so powerfully and rightly put, Mr. Mayor, so that we can live without the assault on our whale and dolphin friends from seismic blasting, which is done in the pursuit of oil, and so that we can live without the catastrophic consequences of climate change that affects every person on this planet and indeed every living species on this planet. In 1982, Wellington was the first council to declare itself a nuclear weapons-free zone. Within 2 years, 40 councils had made similar declarations. It was largely a symbolic statement, but as we well know, an important one in New Zealand, becoming declared in legislation nuclear-free by 1987. Let not Auckland be the last of those 40 councils to say no to deep-sea oil drilling. Let Auckland stand alongside Kaikoura and Christchurch and lead this country to a clean energy future and say no to deep-sea oil drilling. Kia ora koutou katoa. Kia ora koutou katoa, thank you. I'm happy to take questions if that's useful, Mr. Mayor.
Just before you do, Steve, look, I've welcomed everyone here today for the public, and what I'd like you to do, because it will be a good discussion and debate, and you're here for it, hopefully, is respect the standing orders, which we need to debate without involvement from the community in terms of chairing and the rest of it. So I'm happy for you to have applauded Steve on this occasion, but can you just respect our standing orders? It's one set of rules for all. Okay, Steve, thank you. Very good. Now I've got Councillor Wayne first and then Councillor Cathy.
Okay, 2 questions, Steve.
Yeah.
I think the last time you presented, you showed us a video which was the result of a model that Greenpeace commissioned on the impact of an oil spill along the coast. I'm assuming that all of that still stands?
Oh yeah, I thought it'd be showing the same thing again. I realised some of the councils were absent for that, including the Mayor, but that model depicted an industry standard offshore spill model that shows a very high probability of impact on the west coast of the North Island, where a deep sea offshore oil blowout to occur. We modelled a 10,000 barrel a day blowout. Subsequently, it turned out Anadarko modelled 12,000 barrels a day, so our estimate was conservative by industry standards. It took 76 days for that blowout to be capped in our model. OMV, the Austrian offshore shallow water drilling company, modelled 120 days to cap an oil spill in the shallow water off Taranaki in their spill modelling. And the actual Deepwater Horizon Gulf of Mexico disaster, with all the President's industrial capability in that oil drilling region, took 87 days to cap a deep sea oil blowout. So that 76 days was conservative. And again, Anadarko concurred that there was a 51% likelihood of oil reaching Auckland shores if there was a blowout in the 100 kilometres off Raglan in the Tasman Sea. That would have potentially catastrophic impacts on the Manukau and the Kaipara harbours, and the Kaipara being, of course, a spawning ground, as is noted in the submission for snapper. Huge impact on not just our way of life, our oceans, our coastlines and our marine species, but also on our economy, potentially from that sort of an event. And that is a low probability catastrophic consequences event that is one of the inherent risks in oil drilling, in deep sea oil drilling.
Okay, thank you. And the other question I had is, you observed that our submission makes no mention of climate change or emissions from oil. The position that other councils have taken, do they take into account emissions?
Yes, other councils have taken into account that, and I noted that some of the dissenting, the opposing local board submissions mentioned climate change in the Auckland region, and that none of the local boards seemed enthusiastic about it, and clearly some were outright against drilling. And this is a pattern we find around the entire country, is there is no council in this country who is saying, yay, oil drilling. At the least, they're saying that there must be great caution, and they're expressing many of the concerns that I've seen expressed in the existing submission and by the local board councillors. But we're at a point now where we need to take the step of saying, therefore we oppose this drilling happening, because the benefits are negligible and the risks are significant.
Thank you.
All right, Councillor Cathy.
Well, Steve, could you just say a wee bit more about Christchurch City Council's opposition to the block offer?
Yes, Christchurch Council opposed the block offer for last year's block offer, and they made an even stronger statement this year, opposing the block offer outright. That was passed by all but one councillor. So it was unanimous last year, their opposition to it, and this year there was only one dissenting vote against that opposition. And a strong statement expressing many of the things that I've outlined in my submission today, which is the impacts on marine species, the risks and the negligible benefits, and the climate impact of oil drilling. And really they're recognising that for Christchurch it's simply not worth the risk. They are clearly well au fait with the impact of disasters, and they're risk averse, as we all should be, because what is at stake is very significant if something goes wrong in terms of an offshore oil blowout, but also in terms of the impact of climate change. Yeah.
Thanks. I read in the newspaper that the acting mayor, Vicky Buck, had written to our mayor, Len Brown, and I wondered if that letter might be tabled.
No, I haven't actually got it.
Asking questions of
You haven't
the
seen it?
actual-
Does that mean it's come in and you haven't seen it, or it
No,
hasn't
I
come
haven't
in?
seen it. It may have come in, but I have not seen it.
Could we get a copy of it? For the debate?
Well, I don't know anything about it.
If she took the trouble to write to this mayor
Yeah.
to seek our
Yeah,
support.
that's a point
in
of
opposing
clarification.
it.
It's not a question to Steve, so we'll deal with that after. Right, any other questions to Steve? Stephen?
Can I ask a question of
Councillor
Steve?
George.
Yeah, what about other councils, say New Plymouth District Council, they're involved in this area too. What's their position, Steve?
Actually, I haven't seen the submission this time from New Plymouth, but I actually don't know. I can't answer that question. I presume they expressed similar cautions about the environmental impacts. I don't imagine they would necessarily oppose it. Interestingly, what's happening in Taranaki right now in terms of the economic impact of the low oil prices, we're seeing big impacts in Taranaki from their sort of heavy reliance on the oil industry traditionally economically.
I think it's dairy-led, really, but
What's that?
I think it's mainly felt from the dairy industry.
That's true. You're absolutely right. Dairy and oil are both having a hard time right now. And indeed, that's I think one of the points that has been made in terms of the economic reality of the fossil fuel decline, as we've seen with coal also in this country having significant impact, is that this is a sunset industry in many ways. We can't wait for it to go out of existence by itself, though. It needs to be helped out of existence, and we need to be focusing our energy on clean energy if we're to deal with climate change. Because as the BP gentleman points out, we're not actually ever going to run out of oil, and so we need to take a choice to move to a clean energy society.
I just got a follow-up question. What about in Northland? What's the Northland Regional Council's position?
Their position hasn't been established on this time round. They have there is opposition, though, significant opposition in Northland, particularly from iwi. And
With the council?
yeah, at the regional council meeting that Statoil attended a few months ago, there was a lot of concern about the drilling. Yes.
So that was just their response.
They haven't made a response yet to this submission.
I'm saying that it was in the emergency response aspect, wasn't it? That
Yeah, in terms of the risk, yeah, the
we should
significant
be
concerns.
concerned about that as well, should we?
Well, our emergency response capability in New Zealand is laughable, really, and that's in the Gulf of Mexico, they managed to recover 5% of the oil that was spilled with over 6,000 vessels working on recovery. In this country, the fact is, when an oil blowout happens, the emergency response is largely window dressing. It doesn't really have a significant impact on the oil. You want to not get to that stage of a blowout, and the industry would say exactly the same thing, that they put all their energy into avoiding a blowout happening, obviously. But the point is that remains one of the inherent risks, and that is the risk that we need to consider.
Right. Thank you.
Happy
Steve,
to
thank you.
move the proceeding.
Yeah,
Can
no,
I just ask a quick question?
I was going to move.
Mr Mayor, can I just ask
Yep.
one quick question? Can you just confirm for me, Mr Abel, that because it's not apparent in the actual email, that the over 1,500 emails that we've received into our inbox are generated through an automatic generation of some kind via Greenpeace organisation? We've received the same pro forma emails.
Yes.
Over 1,500 times. Is that from your organisation or generated from your organisation?
So we set up a submission form for members of the public to utilise, by which they can send an email to you.
And
Yes.
can you also confirm for me other ways in which you've promoted your response to this particular block offer submission from us? Does it include sticking of posters on lamp posts around town centres?
For the block offer?
Yep,
Not that I know of. I don't know of any sticking of lampposts.
thank you.
Okay, questions asked and answered. Stephen,
And
thank you.
there's a strong deep sea oil movement in the country which may involve some public expression of opposition to oil drilling, if that's what you mean.
There's a reason I'm asking in regards to the lamp posts, but I'll refer to that in debate.
Right. Steve, thank you.
Thank you.
Well done. Thank you very much. Okay, our next piece of public input will be from Penny Bright, who's going to talk about cost-benefit analysis of the Auckland Council amalgamation. Steve, thank you. Penny?
I was happy to move, thanking Steve.
Yeah, I'll move both of them.
Okay,
again.
all good.
That's all right. I enjoy getting your guidance today, Councillor Wayne. It's excellent.
Always good to have guidance.
Right, Penny, welcome. 5 minutes, as you know.
Thank you, Mayor and councillors. For your information, next month I will be attending my 5th International Anti-Corruption Conference, where I will be mixing and mingling with 500 to 600 international anti-corruption experts. And I will be explaining, as a 2016 Auckland mayoral candidate, the persecution and prosecutions I have and am facing as an anti-corruption whistleblower. One of the things that I shall be seeking considered opinion from these anti-corruption experts from is the unelected private sector lobby group, the Committee for Auckland, whose member companies contract to Auckland Council and CCOs, and to which Auckland Council and some CCOs are actually members. And to assist, I have included for the minutes a copy of Local Government Official Information and Meetings Act reply, which points out basically the lack of governance and oversight, the fact that the once clear boundaries between public and private are now no longer. Please be advised, councillors, in case you don't know, that I made a second without prejudice offer in my defamation case against CEO Stephen Town, which was rejected.
Penny,
Okay, I'm getting on to
Very
the meat now, which is that is it time for an independent cost-benefit analysis of the Auckland forced amalgamation? I say yes, and interestingly enough, the National Party-dominated Local Government and Environment Select Committee of Parliament, some of them agree with me. What has happened is that there's been a Local Government and Environment Select Committee report on my petition 2014/9, and the recommendation is the Local Government and Environment Committee has considered petition 2014/9 of Penelope Mary Bright and 43 others and recommends that the House take note of its report. The petition requests that the House conduct an urgent inquiry into the alleged failure of the current local government commissioners to carry out the necessary due diligence in order to comply with their statutory duties under the Local Government Act 2002 before formulating the draft Wellington reorganisational proposal. Petitioners' concerns. In 2009, 1 regional and 7 territorial authorities were amalgamated to create the Auckland Super City. It was actually 2010. The petitioner told us she was opposed to the Auckland amalgamation from its inception and questioned its reasoning. Because of her interest in local government reorganisation, the petitioner decided to become involved in the draft Wellington reorganisational proposal when it was released. The petitioner is critical that the Commission released its draft Wellington proposal before it provided statistical data on Wellington's 9 local councils' costs of services and regulatory functions on which future costs could be measured. How can you have a cost-benefit analysis if you don't know where the costs fall? Acquired statistics illustrating the predicted efficiencies resulting from Auckland's amalgamation. An opportunity to learn from Auckland, cost-benefit analysis. The petitioner suggests that cost-benefit analysis data of the Auckland amalgamation should have been made available to the general public. She believes this would have been a useful resource to help inform the public when considering the Wellington proposal. Some of us agree that publicly providing a cost-benefit analysis of Auckland's local government amalgamation may have been helpful. Applying Auckland's efficiency savings to Wellington. The petitioner wrote to the Auckland Council asking about efficiency savings, financial savings resulting from better organisational operation it has gained from amalgamation. There was, the petitioner noted that the Greater Wellington Regional Council, in its application for local government reorganisation proposal for a unitary authority with local boards for the Wellington region, had mentioned these savings, stating that, quote, the Auckland Council experience and overseas examples strongly suggest that there should be a reasonable expectation of efficiency savings from the creation of a combined Wellington Council. Auckland Council replied that its efficiency savings were not available in a readily accessible format. However, the Council contested the petitioner's suggestion that the efficiency savings opportunities identified by the Greater Wellington Regional Council were based on information regarding Auckland's own efficiency savings. The petitioner believes that transparent evidence proving efficiency savings from the Auckland amalgamation would have been helpful in assessing the Wellington proposal. Some of us agree that this information should have been provided in an easily accessible format, especially considering that the Greater Wellington Regional Council mentioned Auckland's efficiency savings. Some of the information we received highlighted potential issues that we believe are worth investigating. We will raise these issues when the Local Government Commission appears before us in the future.
Penny, close to finishing?
Yes, just about finished. Committee procedure. Petition 2014/9 of Penelope Mary Bright was referred to us on the 29th of April 2015. We received written and oral evidence from the petitioner. I was the only one they got evidence from. So obviously, the Local Government and Environment Select Committee couldn't have seen that Ms Bright makes wild and inaccurate accusations about the council, because it was my obviously compelling evidence that has resulted in this very strongly worded report. And the last point I'd like to make is that hot off the press, I have a new petition, and I have an MP who's prepared to present it, respectfully requesting that the House conduct an urgent inquiry into the cost effectiveness, transparency and democratic accountability to the Auckland Council and the majority of Auckland citizens and ratepayers of all Auckland Council-controlled organisations, because there was never one before we got this forced upon us, and there hasn't been one since regarding Auckland CCOs, which have been the mechanism for the corporate takeover of the Auckland region. Thank you.
Thank you, Penny. Right, are there any questions of Penny? Councillor John.
Not so much a question of Penny and Mr Mayor, but Penny's theme today is one that you do hear occasionally echoed in the community as to an assessment or review of the functioning of the Auckland Council. In your conversations, Mr Mayor, or anyone else for that matter, has the government ever signalled any interest or intention to conduct such a review at some point in time?
No, although as you know we're constantly subject to reviews, analysis, research and reflection, but nothing specifically on the issue that Penny has brought to us today. From an organisational side, Steve, are you aware of any of this? No. Councillor John, what is evident is that Penny is suggesting to us that this matter will be taken to Parliament. So I mean, my view in terms of a full review of exactly how Auckland Council is going would either be best done through the review of the Auckland Plan at the beginning of the third term, or maybe at the end of the third term. You really need some benchmarks to measure against. So we'll see what Parliament comes up with, and I expect the government will continue their process of review and analysis. And as I say, I think beginning of the third term will be an opportunity for fresh council to look anew at how we've gone thus far and maybe make some recommendations to the government.
Just my point on that is that, again, how can you establish the costs for a cost-benefit analysis if you don't know where the costs fall? And as you well know, that is why I have disputed and refused to pay rates for the last 8 years, because the books are not open and we don't know exactly where the money's going. It needs to change because that is not lawful.
Okay, and Councillor George?
Yeah, Penny, the Royal Commission, when they reported on Auckland back in 2007, 2008, they indicated that it would be a good idea to have an independent audit office set up by Auckland Council to look at prices and efficiencies, how we were going as an organisation.
Yep.
What's your view on that idea?
My view is very simple. In my considered opinion, if Auckland Council in-house legal services focused their attention on making sure that the council complied with its statutory duties under the Local Government Act, the Local Government Rating Act and the Public Records Act, that would help to solve a lot of problems, because there's two sides to the story here. Yes, the public have duties in terms of paying rates, but you people have statutory duties to let us know what our liabilities are. That information is not being made publicly available, and particularly with CCOs, because they're not local authorities, they're not covered by the Local Government Rating Act. And with Watercare, you still don't have any idea, if you look at a Watercare bill or look on their website, where any of the money that they are getting, they are spending. Where's it going? How is that transparent? How is that proper? How is that right? What are you doing about it?
Right, Councillor George. Right, question asked and answered. Councillor Bill.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Thanks, Penny, for your input once again. So the Auditor General went through our annual report, and you were there, I believe, at that particular meeting. You'll recall, I think, that the capital spend was a record high of $1.533 billion, which is considerably more than all the legacy councils put together. And the council actually produced an $80 million surplus, which was made up of different things. So your questions about efficiencies and lack of transparency, surely the annual report of ours, which is audited by the Office of the Auditor General, and the annual reports of Watercare and Auckland Transport do give you and the public a fair degree of clarity about what's going on in the organisation family completely?
No, they don't. The devil is in the detail. What, I'll say it again, what I am seeking is the detail that gives the name of the contractor or consultant and subcontractors, the scope of the contract, the term and the value of the contract, and whether or not it was put out for public tender. Unless you have that devilish detail, you cannot follow the money, you cannot follow the dollar. And we are allowed to know that information. It's our money. Where's it going? Because as soon as you get into contracting, you get into contract management. And I believe we end up with a three-tier system of contractocracy, where you have the consultants that project manage the works contractors, who then a number of them farm out the work to subcontractors. So it's the ones with the boots and overalls on who get their hands dirty doing the work. They're down the bottom of the food chain getting least possible money, while you've got all these private piggies in the middle of the snout and the trough ripping us off blind. As it were.
Right, thanks. Question asked and answered. Thanks a lot, Bill.
Good answer, Penny.
Yep. Well, thank you, Mr Chair. Penny, I wanted to put that in May, the Chief Executive launched a move to make the council more transparent, and any contracts awarded over the value of $100,000 would be available, some detail would be available on our website. That was the intention, and I understand that's what's been happening for the last financial year and now the current financial year. And I just wonder if you've been on the website, if you've seen those details, and what problems you have, if there are any shortcomings around that, because from my perspective, that's a big improvement as far as contractors, consultants, over 100,000 now being publicly available on the council's website.
Well, I like to think that all my kicking and screaming and standing up in court and making a huge fuss may have helped to achieve this glacial progress, but it is not enough. Why contracts over $100,000? When I pointed out that Auckland Transport basically gave the detail that I was seeking, but only contracts worth more than $50,000, I pointed out it should be every dollar. Now, what's the problem is with the information being provided on the Auckland Council website is that it is not as transparent as it should be, because what it does, it groups together, it aggregates the supply and the total amount with their contract. You do not get, with each uniquely identified contract, that devilish detail. And also it does not apply to sole traders. And so although it's like trying to push a dinosaur, yeah, it's a very slow step in the right direction, but it does not cut the mustard because it does not give the devilish detail in the format that the public need to exercise proper public scrutiny over our money.
Right, thank you. Penny, thank you very much for your submission today. Right, councillors, I'm going to move. Second will be Councillor John. The receipt of submissions from Steve and Penny. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against? Thank you very much. Right, now we're going to move to local board input. We have two local boards who are going to input to us today. First of all, Waitakere Rangers, in the person of Greek and Saffron. With Banner.
Someone needs to talk to John Wall.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Thank you, councillors. Saffron Toms and I will double team this. We're here on behalf of the Waitakere Rangers local board. This particular issue, the block offer, is one that's very important to our board. All of us would have been here, but we have a workshop scheduled right now, and Saffron and I were given leave to come and talk to this. It's of major importance to our board because, as you'll be aware, the Waitakere Rangers local board area is deeply affected by any proposal for drilling. We have much of the west coast adjacent to our board, and also part of the Manukau Harbour, and any sort of disaster that may occur would have significant implications for us. We've prepared a very short series of PowerPoints, and we've filed written submissions which are part of your agenda. The points that we wish to raise very briefly today are threats posed by oil drilling to west coast pristine environment, the threat to habitat of Maui's dolphin and other protected marine mammals, and climate change and the need to keep oil in the ground, and we'll offer some brief comments as a conclusion. In terms of the threats from an oil spill, this is a photograph of the Deep Horizon explosion in the Gulf of Mexico that occurred not so long ago. And you may be aware that that one incident caused 16 deaths, and as well as the pollution of a large area of the American coast. And it's regarded as the largest environmental disaster the US has ever experienced. And when you look at that photograph, I would ask you to note that there are 6 tugs there fighting that particular fire. This next photograph I'm going to show you is one of New Zealand's boats that we have available in case of disaster. It's the Kuaka, which is currently hosted at Te Aratu. It's one of 3 boats in the country that Maritime New Zealand own, specifically designed to deal with oil spills. And when you look at that boat, your confidence that we could handle a major oil spill is probably shaken.
It's actually a ferry, isn't it?
The particular issues that are posed by a large oil spill off the west coast, that much of the area is regional park. There's limited access to the coast. We have some of the highest cliffs in the Auckland region. It's a high energy coastline. The sea there is very strong, and there's, we believe, a limited ability to deal with an oil spill. There are boats in the world that perhaps could handle a major oil spill, but it would take months for them to get down to New Zealand. And in the meantime, the devastation that would be caused would be tremendous. I appreciate that this is a very outside chance that this may or may not happen, but it is reason for us to be careful. The next part will be handled by Saffron.
Kia ora tātou. Thank you, Your Worship, the Mayor, for listening. Thank you, councillors. Thank you, members of the public, for your concern and interest. So I'm just going to briefly talk about the threat to the Maui's dolphin, but it's not just about Maui's dolphin. Maui's dolphin is an iconic species. Many of us know a lot about it already, so I'm not going to go into much detail on that. We have in our Auckland area 22 species of cetaceans in Auckland. Cetaceans are whales, dolphins or porpoises, and that is almost a third of the world's species. So we're definitely a biodiversity hotspot in terms of our oceans. We also have pinnipeds, including seals, and many of these animals are protected under the Marine Mammals Protection Act in 1979. And to bring a bit more of a local and current perspective, the Manukau Harbour Forum reconstituted itself due to the change in the Local Government Act this year, and we also looked at the terms of reference again, and high on the list of issues that we can address are the health of the harbour and the protection of species such as Maui's and other marine species. So that forum has a membership of 9 local boards out of 21 of the Auckland region. So all of the 9 boards that border on the Manukau Harbour have signed up to that and have a very keen interest in the Manukau Harbour's health. Just wanted to quickly talk about some of the species that are there. Include some of the species that frequent our coast are xiphids or beaked whales. These are cryptic, unpredictable creatures, and they're likely low in numbers. We don't know much about them, and that's the same is true of many, many other creatures as well. We also have toothed whales, including sperm whales. Their dives may last about 35 minutes, and they can go as deep as 1,000 metres, but more commonly around 400 metres. A sperm whale's clicking vocalisation used for echolocation and communication may be as loud as 230 decibels, which is the same frequency as a seismic survey. So using the seismic surveying, obviously that's the step before you'd be doing your exploratory drilling. That in itself is very, very confusing to the creatures. At very close proximity, seismic surveying can cause death. A little bit further out, physical injury, and further out than that, behavioural changes. This has been well documented. Sorry, next slide. Death, injury, stress, avoidance of the common migration routes, which will obviously have impacts on feeding, fisheries, behaviours, who they might run into in terms of gene pool and things like that, and other behavioural changes which we don't understand, which would relate to feeding, breeding and nursing. Adding to that, the capacity to assess the presence of marine mammals on surveying vessels is limited to observers' sightlines of up to 1.5 kilometres or passive acoustic monitoring, which has a 300 metre limit. And if a species is delayed, one of the special species that's been identified, startup will be delayed at the source or shut down if an observer detects a cetacean with a calf within 1.5 kilometres of the source, a species of concern within 1 kilometre of the source, or any marine mammal within 200 metres of the source. And as you can appreciate, those are quite close, and in terms of our limited information about the impacts to these creatures, it's a high risk that's not worth it. Next one. This is just a snapshot of the data that's been been provided to dock by observers on exploration vessels. As you can see, that there's lots of green dots. Those are dolphins. They don't break down which kinds of dolphins, but there's a strong argument that dusky dolphins and common dolphins should also be included in protections, and they are, I believe, protected under the Marine Mammals Act. And as you can see, obviously these animals move from, you know, vast distances, so anything that happens outside of our particular coast to these creatures will obviously affect whether or not they're in our space in the end, so they actually have an effect on our local biodiversity as well. And I just wanted to repeat, these are only sightings from the seismic vessels themselves, and just wanted to point out as well that, that there have been sightings within not only open block offer areas, plenty of those, but there also have been many, many sightings within petroleum permit zones. Next one. It's a major priority for our local board to raise awareness about the health and well-being of the creatures on our coast, and one of the things that we do, we have done, is we actually have a Maui's dolphin line, and that's our wonderful flag there. Don't want to just bring it down to the Maui's dolphin, but that's just an illustration of the commitment that we have, and that has been really well received within our communities as well. I'll pass it back to Greg. Oh wait, one more. Sorry, that's for the end. Okay, this one, yeah.
Okay, just a couple of comments about the need to keep the oil in the ground. And my personal belief is that the science is very well settled, and the situation is that urgent that all elected representatives, no matter what level they occupy, ought to talk strongly about this issue and try and persuade the forces that be that action needs to be taken now. The IPCC has clearly concluded that to prevent irreparable environmental disaster, emissions need to be capped so that average temperatures increase no more than 2 degrees Celsius from pre-industrial ages. And that is an extraordinarily strong scientific consensus that has been reached by scientists throughout the world. A recent study by McGlade and Edkins, who are lecturers at the London Institute for Sustainable Resources, their conclusion was that of currently discovered global oil reserves, they're a third greater than the amount that can be safely burned. So the oil that we know we have now, we can only burn 2/3 of it. Otherwise we face the runaway global warming which the IPCC has warned against. And this is a somewhat less scientific but more colourful description of our current position. It's by Bill McKibben, who's the co-founder of 350.org. And he said, one lesson of this work is unmistakably obvious. When you're in a hole, stop digging. These numbers show that unconventional and extreme fossil fuel, Canada's tar sands for instance, simply have to stay in the ground. Given these numbers, it makes literally no sense for the industry to go hunting for more fossil fuel. We have binged to the edge of our own destruction. The last thing we need now is to find a few more liquor stores to loot.
So, in conclusion, we ask you not to risk the catastrophe that an oil spill would create, and by not issuing exploration permits. We urge Council to oppose the allocation of petroleum exploration permits in the West Coast area as a whole. And this is based on climate change and emissions. This is all in the name of clean coasts for our people and our animals to enjoy into the future. Protection of seabirds, such as the endangered fairy tern, the dotterel, blue penguin, and many, many others. Protection of marine mammals, already sensitive fisheries, and other endangered sea creatures. And for a genuinely healthy and resilient future for our communities, for current and future generations.
Thank you. Thank you very much, team.
One more, sorry. Where's the...
Oh. Sorry, there you go. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Right, questions, councillors? Councillor Wayne?
Just one question. Can you put up that slide that showed the sightings of marine mammals and the overlap with the block areas? That's the one. So just to clarify, the colours there indicate the block offer areas, and there are obviously significant sightings of marine mammals within those areas. That's correct?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
And it doesn't include, sorry, our CMA, obviously, because that activity is not happening there, so the observers aren't capable of observing what's actually happening in our CMA.
Right. Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Penny.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and hi Greg and Saffron. And this may be an unfair question, but Greg and I were colleagues along with Linda a long time ago. The thorny issue that this council faces is the fact that we don't hand out the permits or not hand out the permits for oil drilling. So we're in the very difficult position of trying to talk to the government about, if these permits are granted, how we want to protect exactly the issues that you're raising. So, and please, Mr Mayor and Saffron, you don't need to answer this if it feels too hard, because it's a tough one. What some of us are wrestling with is, some of us around the table are very comfortable to make a clear statement to government that we would like to see oil and gas exploration off the fragile coasts, particularly the west coast, not happen. End of story, full stop. However, we are not the holders of that decision-making pen. So should these be granted, we as a council want to make these issues that have been raised by Greg and Saffron so clearly. We want to make that via submission well known to government. If you are going to go ahead, our silence is not taken as do or not do. We want to make damn sure that these issues are raised. So for some of us who are very happy to say, please don't do it, full stop. But if you're going to do it, this is our submission on how we want it to happen. Do you understand the need for us to make the points that you have raised so clearly in a submission? Because the reason I ask that, Mr Mayor, is that has been taken as us acquiescing to the support for oil drilling off the west coast, and I personally take exception to that.
A question?
If I could comment, I don't... First of all, the state of the industry right now and the price of oil is such that even if these areas are offered up, I would like to think there won't be any serious investigation happening. But I do think that there are very important principles which need to be re-emphasised to the government about how it's inherently unsafe, how it's such a valuable natural area, and how allowing drilling in this area is going to be counterproductive for climate change. And I think that as an elected representative, Auckland Council ought to say those things very clearly.
Thank you, Greg.
Can I respond as well? Yeah, my apologies about the permitting comment. No, I'm aware that we don't actually permit the exploration permits. We don't grant those ourselves, but we do have a certain amount of control over our coastal marine area. So we do have an opportunity to take a position, and in the past, I forget which committee it has been, but we had an opportunity to prohibit exploration in our harbour, for example, and we did not. If we permit exploration in our harbour, the obvious follow-on from that is the drilling and the associated catastrophes, let alone the risks associated with exploration anyway. But but I also want to say, and I was going to say this at the beginning, we actually strongly support the positions on environmental protection taken by Auckland Council in the submission, and predominantly it's supporting the position that we're taking against exploration in our coastal marine area, but also really strongly advocating for a little bit for the council itself to advocate to council on protections that go well beyond that because of the uncertainties.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I think I appreciate the clear answer. We just need to make it clear that there is no council committee that has ever had the ability to ban It's not in the harbour. It's not in our drilling, and that is entirely in the hands of the government, and we call and tried to call on that to be the decision of this council, but that vote was lost.
Okay, right. Councillor Mike.
Thank you.
Councillor George.
Thank you very much for that very compelling presentation. In the past, as you would be aware, the government has sought the views of this council and others in regard to this matter. In the past, you may recall there have been quite strong debates within this governing body, and in the end, submissions were produced which said, yes, we agree with the concept and the process. However, we have strong concerns. Maui dolphin was one of them, environmental concerns, and the government ignored them. Now, would our concerns be more effectively conveyed if we said to the government, we have strong views on the possible impacts, environmental impacts, which could be of disastrous consequences, and that is why we say no? Would that be a stronger statement?
I believe so. Thank you.
Very good. Question asked and answered. Councillor George.
So, just following on from the Deputy Mayor, Greg, there's been a lot of, a lot of feedback or submissions saying that we don't have enough commitment, as far financial commitment into this area as far as the response is concerned. But I understand on feedback I've had from the officers of council that there is to be a review which will be publicly notified next year of the minimum amount of financial security required by offshore installations in relation to emergency response. So don't you think that it would be important that this council maintains a strong dialogue with central government so that we can be part of that review, and that we will be looked upon as a credible inputter into that activity by central government, because they've said they'll do it next year. And I think that those financial considerations, when you point up the response boat and those kind of things, it really is important, I think, that we have strong dialogue with central government and maintain it on that aspect, but also the response aspect, where we are already involved, but maybe we should be more involved from a political point of view in relation to the response. So I'd like to hear your comments.
I certainly agree that we need to keep the communication channels open with government. In terms specifically of requiring explorers to have financial reserves put aside, you really do need physical infrastructure if there's a disaster. And right now it seems to me that the physical infrastructure is just totally inappropriate. And having an oil company have some money tucked aside in a bank somewhere is not going to stop environmental disasters from happening. And as part of our discussion with the government, I think it is appropriate for us to say that this is a beautiful, pristine area, and we don't think it's right for you to allow drilling in it.
So has your local board had dialogue from the council operations department who are responsible for this activity?
No, we haven't.
So do you think that would be helpful?
Yes, we'd be happy for it to happen.
Good.
Can I? Sorry, just a brief response. Yeah, I think as much dialogue that we can have with government would be great. I have been in conversation with one of the coastal specialists who I believe is working on the new code of compliance or code of practice for seismic surveying. So that sounds to me to be a really positive step, and I believe that there is some progress happening there. But we are really talking about what the current situation is, and to me it is not a good swap for having a really staunch position against it. So it's not an either or. To me, it's a both. Thanks.
Very good. Right. Any other questions? No. Thank you. Greg and Saffron, thank you very much. Right. The last comment this morning will be from Sharon, from the 5th most attractive tourist destination in the world, Independent Republic of Waiheke. Sharon, you promised me it wouldn't be too long.
Yeah, point of order, Mr. Chairman.
I have given her a right, and Councillor, she has given me an undertaking. It was a late request, and I accept it. But in the spirit of collegiality between ourselves and the local boards, I agreed to it. And I have asked her to be mindful of time. Sharon.
Kia ora koutou. Thank you, Your Worship, for letting me speak, and hello to the councillors. Okay, so look, I'm here as the Economic Development portfolio person on the Waiheke Local Board, and I went through the report yesterday, and I was really, really concerned. So really that's the basis of what I'm talking about. It's slightly different from what's written in the submission, but it's supporting the submission. So firstly, we've got, of course, the effects of the wildlife and the cost of the spill. Having read the document, I don't think there's enough of a case made for the economic developments, economic benefits of oil exploration and removing it. So the figures I understand is that it's a forecast of 2.1 billion over 30 years that could be made for New Zealand. However, if we look at the 2010 spill, the Deepwater spill, that cost 68 billion to BP. So we're saying that this would be a benefit of 60 billion in New Zealand dollars over 30 years, but the effects of this one spill was 68 billion US dollars. So from that point of view, it doesn't add up. The other thing is just that a map that Wayne asked to see again of New Zealand. The way the currents work in New Zealand, they go up from south to north, and then they go round the country. The American spill had 16,000 miles of coastline. We have 16,400 kilometres of coastline, significantly less. So in the case of an oil spill, the oil would probably get everywhere. The cost of the Rena spill in New Zealand, which was 230 tonnes of oil, cost the government, the Treasury, 36.8 million, and untold volunteer hours to clean up, 36.8 million. At that, if we anticipate the Gulf of Mexico spill here, that would have cost the New Zealand taxpayer $148 billion to affect the same level of cleanup. There still isn't, that situation still hasn't been resolved. There's still oil spilling up in the Gulf of Mexico, and it's still unclear what the effects on the economy are, but they're saying that 5 years later, the crab population in Louisiana hasn't come back. Tourism is severely affected. So just as another point then, there's something schizophrenic about the way we're following an economic development policy in New Zealand. So on the one hand, tourism and the film industry are working really closely to promote New Zealand as a clean, green destination. And we spend a lot of money on branding that and giving breaks to film companies to come and film here on the grounds that they're also promoting New Zealand. At the same time, Auckland particularly, but New Zealand generally, is trying to attract high net worth individuals. They're not coming for the Opera House, and they're not coming for the theatre company. They might be coming from the Arts Festival. Thank you for the Arts Festival, it's lovely. But they are coming for the environment. People don't want to come to a place where they're trying to clean globs of tar off their feet. And having spent quite a bit of time in the Caribbean, I can tell you that the Bahamas, you are constantly having to clean bits of tar off your feet. It's really unpleasant. We're also world leaders in terms of environmental protection, and we have huge numbers of species, that there are incredible numbers of New Zealand experts and experts from around the world that come here, bringing money into this country around environmental protection. So again, it doesn't make sense to create a possibility where you're going to do drilling that doesn't have any potential economic benefits and has a lot of risk. The other thing is that, as we can see behind us, we don't really have the social mandate. In terms of the government saying that exploration is okay, in terms of the New Zealand population, most people are really strongly against drilling and mining. And we also have the example of Christchurch, which shows that it is possible for councils to vote against. And as a council representing 40% of the New Zealand economy, and in the interests of the economy, I suggest we think really, really carefully about what the benefits are from New Zealand. And I'd really like to see us showing some leadership around suggesting to the government what they do. I totally get the point that we can't prevail on them to do anything and insist they do it, and we don't have control over the permits, but I think we can make a bloody good case that they shouldn't be drilling. And I think that's probably enough from me.
Very good, Sharon.
And then the other thing is, of course, the opportunities in clean green energy, which again is an area that we're showing leadership in. Thank you. Whoops.
Very good. Are there questions of Sharon from Waiheke?
Don't hold it against me.
No, hardly. We love Waiheke. Sharon, thank you for coming over and representing the board to us. Thank you very much. Okay, councillors, I'm going to move the receipt of those two presentations from the two local bodies. Seconder, Councillor Cathy. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Passed. Thank you, team. Right. I have no extraordinary business. I have no notices of motion. So I now want to move to block offer 216 submission. And councillors, we have the report there under item 11.
I'll move it, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Linda will move it, and
I'll second it.
Councillor George will second it. I want to open the discussion, if I might, with just some opening comments, and in particular I want to acknowledge those who are present here. My opening views are not dissimilar to those expressed by Councillor Penny H. And these views are given to those in particular here out of a sense of frustration, which I think you feel. And those who may be watching this, this telecast here today. The sense of frustration is that this is the public consultation you're having when you're not having a public consultation, quite frankly. This should be in Parliament. And it has been abrogated and sent down to local government for our input, but we are handcuffed because we are not the licence holders or the grantors. And so I want to firstly acknowledge you on the basis you have no other port to call it. We're it. And so you've all turned up here today with high expectation, and I suspect many around this table, if not all, either accept all of what you say or a good part of what you say. And that's in particular if you reflect on the fact that our outstanding brand overseas, aside from the fact we're present world champions of rugby in this world and hopefully will be continuing after Sunday, but our outstanding brand is 100% pure. And I would have thought, I know the government have a mandate and this is their sovereign power, but to basically send this off to us, for us to deal with a public consultation on this issue and then give us no powers with it, for me is not a very satisfactory situation, doesn't reflect well on our governmental relationship and partnership. And so that has a direct bearing on what I think I can do and what I will support in this chamber today. And there have been various views about what I thought and what I don't thought in one of the fish and chip wrappers in the weekend. And I don't accept that view, and they have misrepresented my view, quite frankly. I totally support our submission. And this is the third time we've made the submission. First time it was ignored. The second time there was a small change in terms of a concession around the extent of the grant. But by and large, there is an element of it being something of lip service to the public of this country, and I don't use that word advisedly. We're going to have public submissions, we should have public submissions. Don't depend on local government to actually back you out of a corner. So I support our submission, but I cannot support, because we are the grant holders, we are not the grant holders, taken an ultimate position of saying stop, full stop. If I felt that it would do any good at all, then I would back that position. But I am not going to. Now, I hope you understand that and get a sense of the fact that I support a lot of what's said, and the statement that I made about the issues that are covered within our submission are pretty clear. But if they gave us a little bit more say and a sharing of the authority or delegations in here, then I suspect that things might be a little bit different. But I am not about symbolic gestures. I've been the mayor of the city for 5 years, and I've tried to lead this city in a way where we don't waste time on things we can't seriously impact on. And you've seen us be very strong in some environmental issues, for example, in particular around public transport, and we've talked a bit about climate change and carbon discharge, and we are dead serious about those carbon discharge targets, and we are moving towards them. But there are some things and some battles where I sense that ultimately the power that be is not listening at all, and this is one of them. So, you know, I again just want to acknowledge those that are present here today and accept that in democracy there will be differing views on things as we go forward. But I did not want any misunderstanding about what I felt about this process, and secondly where I felt that I would be as the leader of this chamber and where we should be as a council. Now, of course, that just opens things up. Now, councillors, to you all. Now, this is our third year of debate on this, and I want to give you clear direction as to how I think this should go today. Now, I do understand that there is something coming out of the blocks, and so what I wanted to do was to suggest this way. 3 speak for and 3 speak against, and then call it. All right? I really, councillors, look, this has gone on for a long, long time. So, you know, I'm saying we've been down this track. I think people's views on it are reasonably fair, and it gives the community an opportunity to hear the differing views in the chamber. One, I hope that everyone agrees with submission, and then secondly, that what I suspect is coming out of the blocks, I haven't seen it yet, but something with an added sting to the tail. You know, people will have their say on that. So I want to have 3 votes, 3 speakers for and 3 speakers against, and then we'll call it. All right, now I want you to abide by that. Okay, now, Councillor Cathy, you've got something.
Yep.
Right, just to, now Councillor Cathy, you reflected on Deputy Mayor Buck's correspondence. Look, if she sent it, I haven't got it yet. No one's received it. So, look, as soon as she gets it, I'll make sure it's circulated. Right, now, I've... Councillor Cathy, you want to put something up here, so I think we need to just clear the decks and get everything in front of us. Right.
Can we ask questions?
Yes, very good point. But I don't want these questions to go on for an ever and ever. Me and Councillor, hang on, Councillor George, hang on. It's been moved and seconded. So we have got a live debate. Now, I don't want a whole range of questions because, as I say, we've been going on with this for about 3 years now. So, Councillor Chris, I'll give you latitude to ask one question, and then I want us to just get on with the debate.
Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Some of the submitters have highlighted some gaps in the submission. I've seen some gaps in the submission as well. This is the opportunity for the governing body to fill those gaps. So my questions to the staff that have drafted the submission on our behalf. One of the submitters highlighted the gap of there being a complete lack of reference to the impact on climate change of the continued reliance on fossil fuels. Can I have some explanation as to did that cross the minds of the drafters? Why is it absent? Is there a place to have that there? And I'm saying there is. Also, there is the economic value of Snapper 8, which is a complete overlay of the area. I can't see any strong reference to that, Mr. Mayor. So just an answer on why we haven't referenced the economic value to the economy, to Auckland's economy of Snapper 8. I understand it's some 1,300 tonnes. And also, we haven't highlighted the reputational risk to us as a region, Auckland or nationally, but our case is in that of Auckland. If there was to be a catastrophe, as has been conveyed, and where does that sit with our overarching Auckland plan aspirations to be a city which is not just one that...
Point of order, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, no.
Point of
it's
order.
a third and final
Point of order.
question.
Yes.
You allocated one question to Councillor Darby. He's now up to his third question. Well, I'm assuming that you're going to give us all that kind of latitude.
No, look, Councillor Quacks, I'm waiting for... I mean, I was listening too, and I think that he's sort of getting to the nub of the single question. So you're close to the nub of that question, Councillor Darby?
To finish off the final one is, what does this have on the tourism economy of Auckland that we hang our hat on? So there's three areas there that, Mr. Mayor, I'd like those to be explored and to be part of the submission. That's why I'm putting them on the table here.
Right. Jacques.
Morning, councillors. Essentially, we took the approach of last year's submission. The council took a certain position, and we essentially rolled over that same position, given that the issues are essentially the same. Yes, of course, these matters can be included in the submission.
Can we make... okay, now I'm just some direction here, please. So it came out of... Whose committee does it come out again?
It came out of regional strategy and policy.
But B gives you the
Yes.
gives you
B,
the
let's
ability
have a look
to
at B.
change the...
Delegated authority of the mayor to approve final movement.
Yeah.
Are you okay with that?
Yes.
Look, I can work with you guys to make sure the wording's right. I mean,
Well-
I mean, at the end of the day, it's much better to do that than try and redraft this whole thing here.
Absolutely.
Well,
Councillor
Mr.
Chris?
Mayor, I'm have a bit of a concern about that because...
Councillor George, you the chair?
Well, I'm the chair.
Well, then why don't you make it me and you?
Sorry?
Why shouldn't it be me and you?
Okay.
There you go. That's
But
the end of that concern.
we have that major amendment which would change the whole complexion
Yeah,
of this.
yeah, no, we're going to vote on
If
that,
it
Councillor
goes
George.
through.
Change denier.
Okay.
So, just, Councillor Chris, you okay with that?
I trust you in that regard, Mr. Mayor.
Good on you. Okay, right, now let's just go back to this here. Okay, so we've got now I've been looking at this, and I'm prepared to read it in a way that it's not a direct negative. All right? It's a very close call. But I'm prepared to read it in a way that's a direct negative, so we would put that as an amendment first. Right, now, and the reason why I can read it that way is because we could still send the submission with that. All right? Okay? Now, that's what you could do. This is why. Now, whether I support that is another thing altogether. Okay. Okay, so, right, now I've got a batting line up here. The batting line-up goes, now I've got Councillor Cathy, Councillor Linda, Councillor John, Councillor Chris, and I don't know whether you want to speak?
Yes.
You do?
Councillor Penny W. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the fours first. And I think that's appropriate. That's the fours to the major submission, and I guess I'm presuming that these fours will be speaking against the amendment. Right, so I've got, I'm presuming here also, so you need to indicate. Councillor John, you want to speak?
Yes, please.
Right, now remember, I'm going to take, I think you guys are going to fail on this test badly. I was going to take 3, 4 and 3 against.
It's up to you.
3, 4 and 3 against. Now you guys can either decide, because once we've gone through 3, 4 and then 3 against, if someone calls it to speak 4 again, then we're into it. And you'll have the whole 20 of us up on our feet, and it'll go through to 4 this afternoon. So the challenge is for you now. I'll pick, for the fours, I'm going to pick 3 fours first. All right? And so the first one I've got here is Councillor Linda, then I'm going to go Councillor Penny, and does anyone else want to speak for?
Yeah, well.
Councillor George. Okay, so Councillor Linda first.
Oh, yeah, good team.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And just to dispel any doubt about yesterday's newspaper that I'm a Len supporter.
Yeah, get that out.
My view of this has been, you know, it's been voted on before. It's got nothing to do with anybody around this table. It's my own view. So, notwithstanding, I thought that what you said was very good, Mr. Mayor. I think for me, quite rightly, people came to us last time because in our first submission to the block offer process, the government didn't respond to our comments. So people were very concerned that we'd send a submission and then there'd be no response at all. But last time when we put the submission in, there was a change, and I'm heartened by that. I think a sensible, strong-worded submission such as this, there are some really strong words in this submission that talk about significant risks from offshore oil and gas exploration, talks about the likelihood being low, but the consequence of a blowout being having significant adverse impacts. So as a council, we are absolutely telling the government what we think about the risks. But we're being balanced, and that's our role. We need to put forward a view, and for me, just saying no, it's a view, but it's a very narrow view and it's a very blunt instrument. I think here we have the ability to tell the government what we think, how we want to protect our environment, though it's not in our coastal marine area. Of course, there could be effects, flow-on effects, if something happened. And I want to thank the Waitaki Rangers local board, and I'm very aware it's one of the local boards that's part of my ward. And we know very well, the Deputy Mayor and I, how they feel about the Maui dolphin and how most people do, that we want it protected. So we've heard that, and we've also said to them at one of the meetings when we were challenged about it that we think this is the best way to deal with this. Tell the government exactly what we think, all the different points that we want to make. And you can't encapsulate that in a single word, no. You have to spell it out as we have in the submission. And really, we do get given a lot of things to submit on about all sorts of subjects. We get given a lot of regulation to implement from the government. We get a lot of stuff handed down to us, but really don't have a final say in how these things are legislated for. So this is the best response. I also want to respond to people saying we don't, we basically not taking heed of the environment. I mean, Councillor Walker knows we've just approved the Growing Greener plan. We have a response to climate change. We have a response to reducing our emissions as an organisation. And those are the things we really can actually do and have control over. So I support the submission. I do think, I urge you, Councillor Wood and Mr Mayor, to maybe put something in there about that people are concerned around the effect of emissions on climate change. So I think we can put that in there if that's what the two people charged with signing it, the final sign-off
maybe that's what we should do. But at the end of the day, I want the ability for us to comprehensively say what we mean when we're talking to the submission. So that's my say on it, Mr. Chairman. I support the submission and any changes that you and Councillor Wood might see fit to put in there. Thank you.
All right, Councillor Penny Webster.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I won't be supporting the amendment, but I am supporting the substantive motion. The idea that Auckland would not be involved is very scary, coming from the Kaipara Harbour. We have to be there so that and let's face it, this is the third block offer. They haven't found any oil. They haven't even put a drill in the ground yet because it's just too expensive and they haven't found anything, and they go through a whole process before they even get to there. And I think we've got to be there, because if, it's a big if, anything was found, I want this council to be absolutely upfront with what we can do as far as resource management and mitigating circumstances and all that. That's when we actually should really get vocal. And if we don't send a submission, or we say we don't want, that we're absolutely opposed to any exploration permits, they'll say Auckland isn't interested. And we are very, very interested. So I agree with everything you say. I do get a little bit concerned when we use the Gulf of Mexico as some example of disasters. It was a disaster. But if they ever found oil here, they would have to put down an awfully big pump to get it out of the ground. It's not artesian. So, I think it's used as the dreadful example of things going wrong. And it did go wrong, absolutely. But that was because there was a hole and the oil was pouring out of it. It wouldn't be pouring out of it if they found it off the New Zealand coast.
Right. Very good. Councillor George.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't support this amendment because I don't believe it's in our interest to break off our relationship with the government. We've done the best work as a council when we've maintained a strong relationship with central government.
That's right.
And I think I can talk about the earthquake-prone buildings where Councillor and I were involved in that process, along with officers of Auckland Council, Mr McCormick and his team, and I think we made huge progress, and we did make huge progress because Nick Smith, the Minister on that occasion, changed it considerably. Now I think, there are reviews coming up in relation to preparedness, financial security, which is going to be required in the near future. And that's because that's what I've got back from the officers. This review of the financial assurance will be publicly consulted on next year. And I think Auckland Council needs to be in a strong position to do that work with the government. And I think, Mr. Mayor, we need as a council to actually do more work than we've done at this stage and get more facts and figures together so we can really strongly submit on that review, because and I think that's what the rest of the country will expect us to do, because we are a third of New Zealand, and I think we have got the wherewithal and the resources to do the to do the work and make sure that before, and Councillor Webster said that there's no exploration occurred as yet. I think we've got there's this window of opportunity to really drive hard with the government to get preparedness up to a higher standard than it is at present. Now, there's obviously two organisations. There's Ministry of Business, Innovation and Employment, an offshoot of that organisation does the licensing, and then Maritime New Zealand do the response work. And when it comes up, I think it's a tier 3, which means that Maritime New Zealand obviously is the lead agency, and then Auckland Council comes in behind, and we have the onshore and in our territory out in the coastal marine area. But but I think preparedness and response is a big factor. And I think when they talk about the RENA, I don't think we got onto the RENA disaster quick enough, because it was probably the first we had of that thing. This obviously would be a far different situation than the RENA, but it's one that we must respond to. So, councillors, I don't support this idea that we tell the government we're not involved, we don't want to get involved. We don't think that we are opposed to the allocation of petroleum gas exploration permits in the proposed area. I don't think that's going to help us in the long term. I think that and we're saying it here today, the Mayor's saying it, we will get on and do more work and do better work so that we can dialogue with the government in a stronger manner. So, councillors, I ask you to not support this, and we will put the original submission in, but then we will continue the work from there on. Thank you.
Right, now I've got 3, 4. Okay, so...
Are you still having questions?
Oh, we're really in the debate, councillor.
Right. First time we've ever done...
We've had 3
against.
years to do questions and all that sort of stuff, councillors. Look, I'm in your hands. If you want to sit here and have a really, really long discussion, I'm in your hands.
No, it shouldn't have been on the agenda item in the first place, so...
Well,
Could've just
councillor
put back
Denise,
in the submission.
that's a moot point. Right, councillor, so I'm going to councillor Kathy, councillor John, and councillor Chris.
I had a question, Mr Mayor.
No, I'm not going to take them anymore.
Well,
sorry.
it doesn't give us any opportunity, Mr Mayor, even to have a question.
Councillor Wayne, you might. Right, councillor Kathy Case.
Well, first of all, we're not handcuffed, as the Mayor said. This is the only public say that the people of Auckland have. And they do have concerns about this. Witness the 10,000 people who marched down Queen Street. I don't know if any of you were there. I certainly was. Witness all these good people who've taken time out of their work to be here today, to listen to their elected members have a view on this, on their behalf. On their behalf. On behalf of the people of Auckland. So I think we should take the opportunity today to make this statement, along with the mitigation measures. So it needs a bit of a rewrite, George, but you're well up to that. To make a statement to government that we don't want offshore drilling off our coast in Auckland. This isn't new. Vicky Buck, one of the reasons I wanted to see a letter that she said she wrote, is that they've already said that. We're not the first. Kaikoura was the second. We're not the first, we're not the second, we're actually the third, but we're the biggest council in Auckland. And I want to return to our Bible. I have this with me all the time, it's actually in my car. I've just reread chapter 7 on the environment. If you do not oppose drilling off our shores, you are not living up to this document. There's 27 pages on the environment. There's even a chapter that's headed up, treasure our coastline, harbours, islands and marine areas. There's umpteen paragraphs I've marked off where it says, make sure that development is not in any of our areas of high ecological significance. You've heard what the boards have had to say. You've heard what Steve has to say. There's pictures for Africa of our west coast. Maui's dolphin, the fairy tern, our high recreational values. Why did we do this? Why did we do this? We did this because we do really value that area. And if we do really value that area, why would we put it at risk? And that's what Christchurch said. It's too risky, councillors. So I'm going to turn to one oil spill that we know about. And that was the RENA. It's been mentioned a few times already. 3,500 tons of oil. 22,000 birds dead with oil. A community broken. I'll read you the victim impact statement from local Maori. Just let me find it. I'll come back to it. Here we go. This was read out in court when the firm was fined $300,000. On top of the $235 million they had to spend cleaning up the mess, on top of the 46 million, sorry, it was a wee bit bigger than you said, $46 million spent by the taxpayers of New Zealand, cleaning up the oil. This is what local Maori had to say. Rena left people shocked and saddened. Our environment is deeply entrenched in who we are. This is our area. It is not as if we have anywhere else to go. We are members of the Tangata Whenua community. We have, through our whakapapa, an undying and unique relationship with our moana. Do we care? Do we care what Māori think? They're not at the table today, but they were at the last vote. We've heard about the species. We've heard about Maui's dolphins. Today, in the media, a new programme to try and preserve our threatened species. That's in here too. We've got a target not to make sure we don't lose any more species. 4,000, they said today, were at risk. Top of the list, Maui's dolphin. How many? 46? Between 46 and 55? What are we doing? What are we doing? Who speaks for the dolphin? Who speaks for the dolphin? We've got great words in here about Maui's dolphin. We don't follow that up with actions, because if we did, every single one of you today would be opposing this and giving a strong message to government and putting the mitigation measures in place. Speak for the dolphin today. The last thing, people have mentioned our clean green image, our 100% pure, and any oil spill or any threat to our coastline dents that majorly. But I want to ask you something. I started this term of council singing a song, What's in it for me? And you know, I haven't heard from anybody. In this submission, it says there are potential economic benefits for Auckland. I heard a few councillors say, oh yeah, we have to be in there for that. What? In it for what? What? Tell me. What's the economic benefits to our ratepayers? I know what the environmental consequences are. I have no evidence whatsoever of any economic benefits. And we're supposed to make judgments based on evidence. Well, I've been listening to the scientists and I've been listening to the submitters today. I'm very clear. I'm with Vicky Buck and Christchurch City Council. I'm with Kaikoura Council. We don't put our coastline at risk in this way, and we have a chance to send a strong message to government. We do it today. So I'd really like this to be unanimous. All we're doing is stating what we don't want. We don't want an oil spill off our coast. Woe betide you if you vote against it, and it happens.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor.
Before it go on, members of the public, I know you're enthused. I've asked you before, please, just let us have this debate. Been plenty of opportunity for input thus far. Right, Councillor John Watson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think we're rather missing the point of today. I think what people are looking for, not just the people who have turned up, but in the community as a whole, is some emphatic leadership, and that leadership can be symbolic. So I disagree, Mr. Mayor, that somehow a symbolic statement today is somehow less worthy. I'd suggest that this is exactly what people are looking for. They're looking for an emphatic, symbolic statement from their political representatives. When it comes to vocabulary, sometimes the shortest words are the best words. And I think in this case, no is the best word to use. And I think what that amendment allows us to do is to say no and then to still engage in the process, if that is indeed what people are suggesting. And I would say that some of the sophistry that we've heard around here today is really just an attempt to try and get out of making that emphatic statement. And I don't think people in our communities find that acceptable. If we look at this issue, and I'm not going to re-litigate all the points, there's been a very consistent theme that's come through from anyone who's spoken today to do with why that answer should be no. There was climate change, there's oil spills, There's the effects of seismic blasting on the Maui's dolphin. There's the nature of exploratory offshore drilling, which hasn't really been dwelt on in all that much detail, but the exponential increase in risk that goes with that activity. And I know that someone said, well, let's not talk about the Gulf of Mexico. That wasn't all that long ago. I mean, and I would just remind you what the statement that was made by William Riley, who was the chair of the Oil Spill Commission. I mean, this is just a few years ago, and this is from America. Our exhaustive investigation finds that none of the major aspects of offshore drilling safety, not the regulatory oversight, not the industry safety standards, not the spill response practices, kept pace with the push into deep water. In effect, and this is the USA, our nation was entirely unprepared for an inevitable disaster. That's what he said. And what have we got? We've got our 3 elongated tinnies that is going to be our response. In America, they had 40,000 people working on that spill. In one shape, form or another, they had over 1,000 vessels. Now, if we're going to consider the risks here, we have to consider our capability to respond, and by any measure, that's woefully inadequate. So what then would make us move away from an emphatic statement? I mean, we had a little graphic there of people on the beach there with "it's not worth it." That was on their sign. It's not worth it. Well, I would say today is as much about saying, is it worth it or isn't it? Yes or no? Certainly in terms of the risk and our capability to respond, it's clearly not worth it. What about the benefits? Councillor Casey referred to some of the comments that are made there. I mean, I think of the one for jobs. Usually if you think of economic benefit, you look at jobs. What are the jobs that come out of the activity? Well, if you look at the Ministry of Business, Innovation and Employment, there's not many jobs in this. Latest figures, oil and gas and extraction, 640, up 120 in 5 years. Petroleum exploration, 510, up 40, and a lot of those people, or a number of them anyway, get work permits for migrants, so they're not even local or even New Zealand people actually getting that work. So in terms of economic benefits, I would suggest that the lion's share, of course, as you'd expect, go to the foreign companies who are doing the drilling. What's the economic benefit for Auckland City? Well, that doesn't seem to have been quantified in any shape or form, and I suspect that's because there would be very little, if anything. So, Mr Mayor, I think when it's all said and done, when we weigh up the risk that has been clearly articulated by any number of people here, when we weigh up the rather tenuous benefits at best, which are very limited, you would have to say that if we're representing Auckland or Aucklanders, our interest area in terms of our environment and prosperity and our peoples that live along the coast, we would be the very ones making an emphatic statement, symbolic or not. And that statement would be, no, we don't support this block offer, and then we would go into the reasons why. That's a clear, logical stance to take, and I think that's the one that people would expect us to take as elected representatives. Yep. Thank you.
All right, got Councillor Darby.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. And Councillor Watson closes by reminding us that this amendment is not wiping our hands of the balance of the submission, and the speakers that have spoken for the primary motion have suggested that it does wipe the balance. That's not being put forward by the mover and the seconder. So there's your opportunity to correct yourselves and vote for the amendment. It's in some ways, you know, there's been a lot of reference to our 100% pure brand. I'd just have to say in this nation, and even in Auckland, Mr Mayor, that 100% brand has lost its adhesion some time ago. It's a badge that has fallen off, but maybe this is an opportunity to put a bit of sticky on that badge and get it at least half sticking back on the lapel of Auckland. But I look at this, and this is of great interest to Auckland, not just because we've got a good turnout of people here today, but this is now being debated in this nation, the direction that we take as a nation in terms of how we ensure ourselves, how we make sure that this nation and our city in this nation is in a position to be able to provide for itself from renewable, sustainable and valuable energy resources. And I think it's a good debate to have. This is not a debate that is reserved for the Parliament and those in Wellington. It's a national debate, and we're a third of this nation in population. We're more than a third of its economy, and we should be contributing. The risks around this have been put by a number of members. But, you know, they are numerous. It's not just an oil platform blowout that we saw with the Deepwater Horizon. You know, ruptured undersea pipelines, they regularly occur. Leaks from rig-to-ship transfers, they regularly occur. Drilling chemical spills regularly occur, very regularly occur. So it's a whole high-risk business all round, particularly in the deep sea environment, especially in the challenging environment of the Tasman Sea, where you've got the Tasman current washing our coast, and you've got a prevailing southwesterly that's going to bring anything that happens offshore, onshore, into our coastal marine area. And I think we've got about 1,500 kilometres of coastline on that west coast side when you take into account our two big harbours. There is absolutely no room for error whatsoever. We have had errors made a lot more recently than the Rena. Now, the Rena was a commercial ship that foundered, and it was not oil condensate from a rig or anything like that. We know that, but the example has been given. Now, there's way more recent examples. Just this year, there was a pipeline fracture in Tauranga Harbour. Now, it didn't get much media in Auckland because it didn't affect us, but it was a minute fracture through corrosion in a pipeline, and Mobil are having a very, they will be before the courts, I understand, on that one. The Rāroa, also more recently, transferring from the rig to ship. This is in the Taranaki Basin. They lost 250 litres of oil earlier this year, I think it was. If you go and look at the correspondence received by the Sunday Star Times recently from Maritime New Zealand, there are multiple leakages of condensate, contaminated seawater, drilling chemicals, the list goes on, that have been itemised by Maritime New Zealand just in the last month. They've received that correspondence. Maui A and B, the platforms in the Taranaki Basin, are on that list more than once, with leaks coming out of Maui A and Maui B. The volumes, they say, Maritime New Zealand say, are not accurately reported. They're not reported, and they're not accurately reported. So when you read that correspondence, you just know that there's a lot more happening. The Rāroa, for example, occurred 75 kilometres out to sea, and in a matter of, I think it was a day or two, it was 10 kilometres from the coastline. That's within the CMA, and that's why we have a deep interest, Mr Mayor. That's how quickly things can change. Prevailing southwesterlies, Tasman current, it arrives on our shores pretty damn quickly. We are being asked to have some political courage here today. Mr Abel has asked that, not to be indifference to Wellington, to actually stand up and be a little bit bold about a new vision around energy and preparing ourselves for the 21st century rather than be looking back on the 20th century and what did us so well there. The fossil fuel age is a mortgage to the world. And if we are to be ongoing reliant on the fossil fuel age, we will not be a leading first world nation. First world nations around the world are doing everything to let go of that reliance. We seem to be further adhering to that reliance, signing up for a second mortgage and a third mortgage to that fossil fuel reliance. I had a very interesting conversation some months ago with a family friend who had the privilege of meeting the German foreign minister. And he asked that foreign minister why they made the extremely bold step, took the political courage, and this is a conservative Merkel administration government, to let go of their reliance on nuclear energy and coal energy. And the answer was not so much about the environmental impacts of that, though of course the German government acknowledges that. They wanted to let go of that old world reliance because to prepare for the 21st century, you need to be a nation that's at the leading edge of renewables. And they wanted to own the intellectual property that their economy is now building on, so that they could capitalise, that they could pay dividends to their nation's GDP for decades to come by being the world's first, along with some others, the leaders in renewables, and to own that space, and for their businesses to own the space and to be selling that IP to the balance of the world. Now, wouldn't it be something if we could get ourselves into that space rather than harking back to 20th century? We don't seem to be in that area of thinking at all. We've been asked to take some political leadership here, and I'm asking this council, as is Councillor Casey, to say that we endorse the submission, but one of the primary parts of the submission we are seeking a change in, and we are saying no to exploration. Exploration does mean digging a hole in the ground and all those risks of leakage arriving. So members, are we going to see ourselves when we cast our vote here as 20th century politicians or 21st century politicians? With courage or deference? Which is it going to be?
Okay, thank you. Right, now councillors, the only way that this debate carries on is if someone who wants to speak for the motion and against the amendment will actually start this debate now. So I'm in your hands. If I have no further hands, then we can actually have the vote now and decide this matter. Right, okay, I'm going to put the amendment.
By division?
Yep, that's fine.
So we're voting on Councillor Casey's amendment by division?
Right, stop. Now, everyone understands this. We're going to vote for Cathy's first. If Cathy succeeds, then it becomes a part of the substantive motion. If it fails, we'll put the substantive motion. You got that?
Yep.
Right. Yep.
Your Worship.
Against.
Councillor Anai.
Aye.
Councillor Brewer.
Against.
Councillor Casey.
Yes.
Councillor Cashmore.
No.
Councillor Clow.
Aye.
Councillor Cooper. Against. Councillor Darby.
For?
Councillor Philippina.
For.
Councillor Hulse.
Aye.
Councillor Crum.
Against.
Councillor Lee.
Aye.
Councillor Penrose.
Against.
Councillor Quacks.
Against.
Councillor Stewart.
Against.
Councillor Sir John Walker.
Against.
Councillor Wayne Walker.
For.
Councillor Watson.
Yes.
Councillor Webster.
Against.
Councillor Wood.
No.
Sad.
That was lost 9-11.
Right, now I'm going to put the substantive motion. Councillor, do you want that in division or you want it by unanimous acclaim? I'm going to put the substantive...
Chair,
We're going to put the...
I know that division's caught. It was just going to be a question.
Yes.
There was the final part of the amendment which I had seen earlier, and I think was A.
No, we...
No?
Yeah.
No,
Okay.
it should have been amendment.
Yeah, look, it was in the wrong
That's
place,
right.
Councillor.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to put the substantive motion. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Oh, sorry.
By division on the substantive motion. Your Worship.
Aye.
Councillor Anai.
No.
Councillor Brewer.
For.
Councillor Casey.
No.
Councillor Cashmore.
Yes.
Councillor Clow.
No.
Councillor Cooper.
For.
Councillor Darby.
No.
Councillor Philippina.
Against.
Hold on.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So that was Councillor Philippina was a no.
Councillor Clow was a no.
Councillor Clow is a no, yep.
Councillor Filipino is a
Let me just go through. We've got the Mayor, yes, and I no. Brewer, yes. Casey, no. Cashmore, yes. Clow, no. Cooper, yes. Darby, no. Filipina, no.
That's right.
Aye.
Councillor Hulse.
aye.
Councillor Crum.
For.
Councillor Lee.
No.
Councillor Penrose.
For.
Councillor Quacks.
Or,
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Sir John Walker.
Yes.
Councillor Wayne Walker.
No.
Councillor Watson.
No.
Councillor Webster.
Yes.
Councillor Wood.
Yes.
Councillors, thank you
12-8.
very much for that discussion and for the members of the public being here and listening to it and submitting into it. Thank you very much. And we're going to have a 5-minute break to enable people to get about their day, and we will have a cup of coffee.
Chair, and
10, 11.
I think this guy would have liked
Chair.
to take it.
Okay.
I'll move me, I'll second him.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
There's 11 there, 12.
Has everybody else buggered off? Oh, Mike's
There's,
going now.
there's 12.
All right, councillors, just as an aside, one of our numbers, having his 16th, 21st birthday today tells me. So I want to lead you in a very, very brief rendition of Happy Birthday to you, Happy Birthday to you, Happy Birthday dear Alfie, Happy Birthday to you. Thank you very much, thank you very much.
He's not 37, he's
Yeah, you
far
cook
too
us
young.
still.
26.
Yeah, 16 more.
In your dreams.
Exactly.
16 21st.
Yeah.
More like
Oh,
36
32.
21st. Okay. Item 12. I'll move. Is there a seconder?
Yep.
Oh, no, Kellen, sorry.
Right. Order, please. Councillor Cullen.
Look, Mr. Your Worship, no, it's all straightforward. Look, I've dribbled on for the last 6 months around our bylaw processes. It's pretty self-explanatory in the item, and I take it as read.
And then
Okay. Any questions or comments? Right. Move it. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against. Thank you. Thank you very much. Item 13. Right. Item 13.
I'll move that.
Right, it's moved, seconded by about 1,000 people. Obviously, they think you don't have enough work to do, Councillor Kell.
No, that's all good.
Moved and seconded. Any comments? Move it. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against passed. Item 14, nomination to University of Auckland Animal Ethics Committee.
I'll nominate Councillor Cashmore.
Right, hang on.
Jeez, what's his track?
Oh, okay.
He shoots animals.
It says Mr Randall.
Yes,
Yeah,
it
that's
does.
the recommendation.
Yeah, he's already doing it.
What's
I'll move
Cashmore's,
that.
what's Cashmore's track?
Member.
I'll second it.
Member Cashmore.
Oh, okay.
Member one.
Look, hang on.
Member.
Shh.
Randall.
Local Board Chair Simon Randall is the present member. He is available for renomination.
Renominate.
I
please.
just have to say,
Yeah, come
I'll
on.
only support if he stops.
Now.
To be called a councillor.
Quiet, please. So there's no real reason why we should not. He's doing a good enough job there. So it's been moved and seconded. No other debate. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against passed. I think there's no extraordinary items. There's nothing in confidential. Councillors, that's it. Now, of course, we've got a... Where are we going to do it? Here, right. I declare that meeting closed and I declare open the next.